Hello and welcome to today's edition of Route 664, The Road to Human Kindness. I'm Les Winston. I'm the national spokesperson for the Endow America Network Foundation and also the website socialsecharity.org. We also have a radio station at Route 664 Radio, and you can get that app on Apple and Android and listen to great music and good talk about financial planning, how to do the best for yourself using what the code gives you and what the government felt was a way for you to benefit yourself. We believe in 664. We believe in the idea of social security. We think that it's important to build income for yourself, and you can do two things. You can build income for yourself and build income that you can leave behind to your favorite charity if you use the social security devices like the charitable remainder trust, charitable gift annuities, and pooled income funds. And that's we want to educate the public to that extent. We think that that type of education is very important. And we also talk about, I've talked about it in the past, the pyramid, where you have to have certain things in place in order for you to be able to get to the point where we think you want to get, which is to your genius. And in order to do that, you have to have confidence over your money, confidence over your time, and then your relationships. And then you get into the spiritual world and you can start helping others, and then you become able to get to your genius, which is doing something you love to do 24 hours a day and never get tired of. My guest today has an idea about that as well with regard to retirement. And actually, he calls it graduation. My guest today is Eric Brotman. Eric is a financial planner, helping families and professionals achieve financial freedom. And I think that's a really good goal. How are you this morning, Eric?
Les, I'm terrific. How are you? Good to be
Good.
here.
Welcome to the show. Yeah, so you have a very unique take on this. You think retirement is a kind of it can be changed to graduation, or that's something like that. Now, give me how you got to that.
I actually think retirement is a fate worse than death, and no one should do it. And I know that sounds peculiar because we've been wired to believe from the day we're born, when can we retire? When can we retire? But the reality is that the way retirement came about, it was a punishment. It was literally a punishment for people that the government felt, and this was the government in Germany in the 1800s, felt were no longer useful, and they would put them out to pasture. And I've never understood why we've continued that now for going on 200 years. To me, retiring is retreating. It's disappearing. It's becoming irrelevant. In the UK, the word retire means to go to sleep. Literally, that's what I'm retiring for the night. I'm going to bed. Like, who
Exactly.
wants to spend 30 years of their lives sleeping? There's so much life to live. And so I think it's a graduation. I think it's matriculating toward the next chapter of life that can be incredibly impactful. It can be spiritual, it can be exciting, and it can certainly be fun. And that's so much better than daytime TV and sitting around, playing shuffleboard. I just don't get it.
How do you arrive at? I mean, I think the idea of retirement was based on age. It was based on, I'm going to get to a certain point and then I have to retire. How do you know when you're going to graduate?
Well, I believe that retirement is not the absence of work, it's the absence of needing to work. So I think when you're financially independent, whether you're 27 or 77 at the time, you're retired. You're now working for fun. You're doing something you love. And if it happens to be for money, that's terrific. So I think financial independence is a great goal at any age. But retirement in the traditional sense, that's what has to be put out to pasture, is that definition, in my opinion.
And what represents financial independence?
Financial independence is when you have enough wherewithal that work is truly optional for the rest of your life. It means you've built a nest egg or income streams or other ways to provide for yourself that does not require a paycheck. And that can
So,
be it can be passive investing. It can be charitable trust, like I know you talk about. It
mhm.
can be having a portfolio that throws off enough income or enough total return to live on in a comfortable way without running out of money. But it involves no paycheck unless you choose to. And if you choose to, that's lovely.
So uh, you're working you're employed by XYZ Corporation. You've been working for them for 20 years. And now you've reached age 65, and as far as they're concerned, that is like a normal retirement age. How do you cope with that?
Well, first you have to plan for it well in advance because it will sneak up on you. And I think retirement is as qualitative as it is quantitative. Unless you have to be prepared for that chapter of your life. You have to make sure that you have things to look forward to, things to be doing, ideally things that are you're passionate about, whether it's volunteerism, whether it's consulting, whether it's coaching or mentoring, whatever it is. And so I think you have to plan well before your 65th birthday. You don't want to wake up one day and suddenly have nowhere to go on Monday. You need to plan for that in advance. That means that if you're passionate about hunger and you want to work with your local food bank, it means get to know those folks, start volunteering while you're still working, while you still have amplitude and you still have abundance in your not only your daily life but your income, and you can make those differences and you can be charitable and you can find something you're passionate about. And then when you're no longer working, you have more time and energy to dedicate to the things you're enthusiastic about.
And that would be without changing your income needs, right? Without changing your budget whatsoever. That would be the ideal.
Ideally, yeah. I think the idea that we need 60 or 70% as a rule of thumb to retire is bunk. I don't know anybody who wants to take a pay cut.
Right.
And I don't think the world's getting less expensive. Taxes
No.
aren't going down. Inflation's back. We had forgotten. We're being reminded in a hurry. And I think people need to face a few realities. One is that life is going to be more expensive than we even imagine, and two is most of us are going to live longer than we believe. I mean, people
So
are
the
living a lot.
problem is that most people, when they, I mean, what they're doing is they're working and they're getting a Social Security payment made for them. They're making a Social Security payment. They may have a 401k and they may have, or a pension plan or some other retirement plan. But for the most part, the people have more than that generally. And if they don't have more than that, how do they reach that
Wow.
level of retirement income that's necessary to maintain their lifestyle based on what they were earning before?
Well, Social Security was part of what historically was referred to as the three-legged stool of retirement. You might have heard that over the years, that the three-legged stool was government, which was Social Security, it was your pension, which was your employer, and then it was personal savings. And for generations, the idea was that you had to put away enough money to have 10% of your money from your own personal wherewithal. Well, pensions have gone largely away. Unless you're a government employee, they're largely gone. Social Security is on the ropes. How it's treated and how that's navigated over time remains to be seen. And eventually, it'll fall in Congress's lap at the 11th hour when they have no choice, and someone will act, because that's the way it works on Capitol Hill.
It's
Um,
true.
so for a long time it was the three-legged stool. Now I think millennials and Gen Z's, and I'm a proud Gen Xer, we're small but mighty, but the millennials and the Gen Z's understand that they're on their own. They're not relying on Social Security, they're not relying on a pension, they're never going to have one. They literally are on their own, and they understand it. I think the boomers have and the Xers had to wake up to that, because we still had parents who had pensions.
Right. Well,
uh,
how do they understand it? Just out of curiosity,
why do the young
where is
people
the,
understand it?
yeah,
They understand it partly because of the media and financial literacy and education and other things, but partly because there is such a distrust of the Social Security Administration, and anyone looking for jobs is at this point looking for salary and benefits, but they don't even think about pensions in most cases. It's not even something you would expect. A defined benefit plan was not set up to in most cases to handle the longevity that we're seeing. I mean,
but
even Social Security.
yeah, yeah, but the thing, what I was getting at is
Yeah.
what from my understanding, the Gen Zs, they don't spend much. I guess their method of coping with what they're going to need in the future is not to have a lot of need, or to not to have a lot of income need.
Hmm.
And so they find they don't have debt. They kind of went through a mini depression in 2008. They
Hmm.
saw what happens in the marketplace. They've got all this kind of an impression of financial, how do you build financial wealth? And I think I'm just curious, are they bigger savers? Are they your financial literacy
Yeah.
objective with those people? How is it different? In other words, what do you got to teach them?
I don't think that they're bigger savers. I think you hit the nail on the head. They're smaller spenders.
Okay,
And this is a generation that values free time and life balance more than income,
right.
which employers have to grapple with, because it used to be you could throw money at any problem. And that doesn't work when you're hiring anymore. Young people want flexibility. They want freedom. They want the ability to come and go. They want their own hours. Everybody wants a private office, a corporate jet, and, and 3 days
You're
off.
right.
But I joke about it, but the reality is that they're actually onto something. I mean, these young people have figured something out that most people take decades to figure out, which is, we don't live to work, we work to live.
Right.
So for them to want everything, I get it. They're not going to get it, not right away. We know that, but they understand that, paid time off or being encouraged to do sabbaticals or additional education or other things is just as important to them as the salary. And they're not spending a huge amount of money. They're not buying homes. I mean, right now,
they're also not being employed, like you said, they're not being employed 40 hours a week. And I think a lot of them are creating a lifestyle which gives them the amount of income that they need to live their lifestyle, and they can actually do that forever as long as they're constantly
working.
adjusting.
As long as they're working, though.
Yeah, well, working is a little different now. That's one of the things I wanted to ask you about.
Yeah.
Work is different. The word work doesn't mean the same thing to them as it meant to the older generations.
That's right.
How? Why?
Well, in the older generations, it was you punched a clock for 30 years, you got a gold watch and a party, and you rode off into the sunset. Now, young people are free agents, and they can change jobs like we might change an automobile or a light bulb. I mean, honest to goodness, they change jobs every 3 years. And some of it is for lifestyle, some of it is for their passion, some of it's just thinking that you have to move out to move up. Everyone's in a hurry. But there's also side hustles. Millennials started that, not Z's, but millennials started the side hustle, which was this idea that, yes, you might work for a company, whether it's 40 hours a week or plus or minus, but you also had something else to fall back on that was a passion project. You were also selling things on eBay, or you were doing, some kind of a craft project, or you were doing some consulting on the side, or you were doing something else.
Yeah. And Hochul, the governor of New York, is talking about eliminating non-compete agreements, which is a very interesting thought, because the idea that you can work at a job and also do the work somewhere else as an independent contractor and not have to worry about a competition allows you to be a little bit more free. And so I was looking at the thought about your curriculum in the financial planning arena. What does it include from the standpoint of this type of planning?
Well, when I wrote "Don't Retire, Graduate" a few years ago, I wrote it to feel like a college curriculum, but not to be a textbook. Okay. So it's actually separated. Every chapter is a course, and it's separated into semesters instead of into units. And so we start with meeting people where they are. So freshman year is a lot about dealing with your first employee benefits or student loans or some of the foundations of budgeting or cash flow and some of the basics. Sophomore year, we're talking about what does it look like to buy your first home or to get married or to have children, and what are the financial ramifications of some of the big life decisions. Junior year is mostly about two things. One, building a portfolio and building your investments, but also two, taxes, because that tends to be the part of your life where you're your highest earning years. You're also getting clobbered by taxation. And so that becomes a big piece. And then senior year is a lot about estate planning, philanthropy, and vision, and figuring out what's more important than money and what your legacy is going to be and how you want to be remembered. So it really is a continuum that people can pick up and either use in a linear way, or they can pick and choose which areas they're most interested in.
So, and then you intersect with them in how do you intersect with your students? How do you reach your students, or how do you get your students?
Well, actually, the online course is available, and folks are welcome to enroll in that. But it's asynchronous, so it's not something that is taught in real time. The book itself has a workbook, and it's all self-study. So I'm not necessarily in that specific way. I'm not actually being the professor. I've done adjunct faculty work, but right now this is a self-study program. People can go at their own pace. The workbook has exercises that if you were to start and go through each one, you'd have a financial plan by the end, and you can do it on your own or you can do it with your advisor. Certainly, we encourage conversations between spouses and significant others to work together, because that's certainly an important piece. But it is all self-study at this point. It's a way to build a financial plan or some financial education at your own pace in a very inexpensive, accessible way.
My guest is Eric Brotman. After the short commercial, don't go away. I have some more questions for Eric about the philanthropy part. That's what we like.
You ever just want to tune out the world and relax? Then you've come to the right place. At Route664.org, we've got great music that will keep you entertained for hours and uplifting conversation that will make you feel good about yourself and the world. So come on in and take a load off. We won't judge here. Route664.org.
And we're back. My guest is Eric Brotman. Eric is a financial literacy educator who wants to educate the public using a very interesting concept that he has kind of turned into almost a college degree.
Yeah.
And I think it's extremely valuable because financial literacy is so important and it's really not being taught anywhere. Why did you, I mean, obviously you saw that gap.
There's a tremendous gap. There is no financial literacy education in most school systems in America. The ones that do it are struggling with it. There's lots of reasons for that.
Give me some of the reasons for that.
Well, in the state of Maryland, there were reasons related to the teachers union. Teachers don't want to teach to things that they don't necessarily know. They also are being paid in a lot of cases based on certain test results. So if this doesn't lend itself toward that curriculum, there's no real incentive for it. There's concern that they're teaching things that they don't fully understand themselves. There was talk about bringing in outside faculty, but then you have all kinds of conflicts of interest between suddenly you have corporate sponsorship more than you have educators, and that's problematic for all kinds of reasons. There's just the consideration of the curriculum and all the mandates and whether there's room to put this as anything but an elective. We're seeing private schools in the area start to do this as an elective, which is great, but most students aren't getting it. There's also a very big concern about legislating curriculum, which I actually appreciate because I don't really want curriculum designed by elected officials. I would rather have it designed by educators and people who understand how it works than whoever happens to be in public office that year. And I don't care, if we legislate personal financial literacy education, for example, and I've never heard anyone say it's a bad idea, but if we legislate that, then what's next? What else could you legislate that you could essentially have the government tell the instructors what they had to teach? And so it's a slipperier slope. It's not as easy as it looks. It looks like something everybody wants. Let's get it done, but it's not as easy as it looks.
Well, what gets me is we are a capitalist society, unless we're being sold a bill of goods that we're not anymore. So if we're a capitalist society, it would seem to me that people need to be educated on how to get along in a capitalist society, which is financial literacy. You don't need financial literacy if somebody's going to provide your food and your shelter, but it's also a form of enslavement. So the question is whether or not you can free yourself. So I like the idea that you graduate. Graduate into freedom in a sense, financial freedom, if you can do that. And so give me a success story.
Well, there have been lots of success stories. Frankly, we've seen success stories at the government level with the state pension plan and starting to build education for their members. Our firm, we started corporate financial wellness programs where we're now adding to most of the employee benefit programs that companies have to add a financial wellness component to it so that employees have someone to ask basic financial questions of that isn't trying to sell them their 401k or their insurance benefits. And we're seeing a lot, both in the for-profit and nonprofit sector, we're seeing employers want to have educated employees. I've often said that money is a little bit like oxygen. When you have enough, you don't think about it. And when you don't have enough, it's all you think about. And so in that case, if you have employees who are worried about how they're going to pay their rent or make a car payment or how they're going to pay for their kids' education or how they're putting food on the table, they're not thinking about work. They're thinking about money.
Yes.
So it's for an employer to recognize that employees need some guidance that HR can't legally provide and ERISA plans, 401k providers can't legally provide, but they can be provided by a financial advisory team that can come in and do those consults and do some education. We do webinars with these folks. We also do one-on-ones on site and remotely. And we're impacting a lot of lives of people who couldn't necessarily afford or don't even need necessarily a financial advisor. Traditionally, financial advisors are all fighting over the same folks. They're fighting over folks with two commas in their balance sheet and who are getting ready to retire in the traditional sense. They're all fighting over the same folks.
Right.
It's extremely unlikely that most firms are prepared to cater to the mass affluent, to the folks who really need them the most. And so,
Don't you think, Eric, don't you think that the biggest stressor for most people is money, and stressed employees who are stressing about money? How can they function properly? And
it's true.
the medical or health issues that arise from all of that. I mean, we need to make some changes in the country and with regard to that stuff. So let me get to the part that
Sure
runs chills up and down my spine, which is the philanthropy part and using philanthropic devices. Do you use them in your curriculum at all? When you
we do discuss that. We certainly do it with our individual clients. We certainly go through that as a component. We discuss legacy more than philanthropy in the curriculum because it's broader and it doesn't require folks to feel like they have to have a certain net worth to play. Because particularly now that 90% of Americans don't itemize on their tax returns, charitable giving has taken on a very different spin, at least in the rank and file employee type area.
Right.
But for families that are trying to create multi-generational and ongoing wealth, and who also have philanthropic endeavors and desires, there's a wonderful confluence between doing well and doing good. And it comes together with tax benefits, with charitable benefits, and with income benefits. And there's so many strategies. What I think happens is the consuming public hears about a strategy. They hear a charitable remainder trust, for example, and what they hear is like what Charlie Brown hears from his teacher, wah, 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 wah. And it's all stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
complexity.
and I think and jargon, and it's the last thing they want is to be in a room with their lawyer, their accountant, and their financial advisor, who are all talking amongst themselves about you while you're sitting there.
Yep.
It's much better to think about where would you like to make a difference? What would you like that difference to be? And how can we most effectively have that also create some benefits for you or your children or your community or other folks? So not everyone owns a Picasso to do a lead trust and to donate it to a museum for 10 years. Most people don't. But lots of people have company stock and are in a position to do some tax planning and philanthropic planning around highly concentrated stock positions, for example. Or there's life insurance planning, which people don't like to talk about life insurance at the water cooler. Mm-hmm. But frankly, it is a phenomenal wealth preservation tool.
Yes, it is.
And then you talk about taxes. The greatest tax benefit I can come up with right now is the HSA, and people don't know how to use them. Mm-hmm. The public was given these tools and then no instruction on how to use them, and they're using them like flexible spending accounts, which is not ideal.
Yeah.
And so some education just makes a difference. There's so many good tools out there, but the tools themselves, the name of the tool means nothing. If I look under the hood of my car and I'm with some really educated people on what's going on under the hood of my car and they start talking to each other, I don't hear any of it. It just will it run.
So 664, 401k is known to everybody, but 664 is not, and that's the reason why we use 664. We have adopted the theory of social security, which is that 664 equals endowment squared, and it's a little bit complicated when you hear it, but the point is very simple. We have a way of creating two endowments, one for yourself and one for the future that you want to leave to charity. And enables you to do a lot of things very favorably taxed, which is what you were talking about. Do you find that most people don't even know what they pay in tax?
They don't know. They see what comes out of their paycheck if they're W-2'd, but they don't. People don't really realize how gruesome it is, especially when you consider it's more than just income tax. You go and you earn it and they tax you on it. Then you bring it home. And if you're lucky enough to save it or invest it, they tax you on that. And if you decide to spend it, they tax you on that. And if you die with it, heaven forbid, they tax you on that. Like we pay taxes on the same dollar 7 times before we're done.
Yes. So avoiding the tax is a crucial part of planning. And my guest is Eric Brotman, who has a pretty good handle on retirement, what it means not to be retired, but rather to graduate. and to become just changing positions in a sense, moving from one phase to another, but moving in a comfortable way so that you know that you can not have to worry about whether you can or you can't. It's not easy. I give you a lot of credit for putting together something that can help people learn that easily. How can they find out more about what you're doing, Eric, and get a hold of the learning material?
I'll share two resources with you. One is brotmanmedia.com, which is where you can pick up the book or the workbook. And of course, it's on Amazon and other spots. And the other is for folks who just want to learn a little more about taxes. If you go to lowtaxbook.com, there's a free resource you can download that'll teach you about the 4 places most Americans can save money or put money where it's never taxed again during your lifetime. And it has been a game changer for thousands of folks who've downloaded it. So I hope your audience will enjoy that.
I like that. What's the name of that again?
Lowtaxbook.com.
Lowtaxbook.com. Okay,
Correct.
I want to make a note of that. I think we need to get a copy of that. And
please do. Please do. And I'd love to hear. Well, I'd love to hear if there's some spots you think I missed. But there, I've highlighted 4 ways to put money aside and shared stories around it. And it's an easy read and it's free.
Sounds good. We are all about saving money on taxes and converting what we call your social capital is either your taxes or charitable dollars, and you have the right to convert your social capital from tax to charity. When you do that, you benefit. That's what the government said in 1969 when they made these sections of the tax code available that we're concerned with. And our philosophy in Dow America is income for you and income for the community and benefits to the community. So it's all about, and if we do that, you think that they would, if the government has less of a burden. I mean, let me go back for a second.
Sure.
I believe, and I'm going to ask you the same question. Do you think it's right for government to support non-governmental organizations?
To support non-governmental organizations?
Yeah, to provide support to non-governmental organizations.
Ultimately, probably not. I mean, ultimately, I think unfortunately government has taken on the role of too many roles in Americans' lives, and one of them is perpetuating votes. And unfortunately, if the government were to empower people to act on their own and not need the government as much, the government might get smaller. And government never gets smaller.
Well,
it never gets smaller. It gets bigger.
It doesn't. But they did that they did in 1969. They created these things to really create smaller government because they knew that demographics were not going to be able to support everything that they were doing. But they went overboard and haven't told anybody about what they did in 69.
Well, we haven't heard smaller government since Reagan. That's right. And I don't know if we're going to hear it anytime soon.
All right. Well, I hope that we do, Eric. My guest is Eric Brotman. Very well educated and very astute educator who wants to help you become financially literate, and you can do that by using the tools that he's created. And thank you for joining us today on Route 664, the Road to Human Kindness.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Eric. We'll be with you again, same time, same station. Here's a little bit of our radio station information. You get the app now on Apple and on Android. We'll see you next week.
We've got best-selling authors.
You are going to start to uncover all the layers that are covering your genius.
And some of the world's top leadership experts.
We have structured a mastermind program that is very unusual and it is very powerful.
Robin Sharma at noon.
Your creativity will soar, your productivity will be epic, your impact will be legendary. You will be the best in the business, and you will not only achieve remarkable things, but you're going to feel sunsets. You'll feel a connection to people. You'll feel for what's going on in the world, and that will make you a world changer in your own unique way.
Robin Sharma at noon at 4 p.m.
It's a
Blaine Bartlett
exploration of what it takes to be a highly effective leader in today's fast-changing environment.
Best-selling author, executive, and leadership coach.
And if you've been liking what you've been listening to on these Soul of Business podcasts, how does one become a leader that can keep connection to the soul of business?
Blaine Bartlett at 4 p.m.
Look forward to seeing you there.
At Route664.org. This is Route 664 Radio.
Hey folks, it's Charity here. 664 equals endowment squared. That means income for you, benefits for all. It's a way to help make the world a better place. Peace through prosperity, prosperity through peace. Join us at socialsecurity.org.